right, everybody, welcome back. Today we are diving into something might seem a little dry, but I promise you it's really important, especially if you ever order snus online. We're talking about UK customs fees. Because let's be real, nobody likes getting hit with those unexpected charges. So in this deep dive, we're going to break down exactly how to dispute those fees, potentially get your money back, all thanks to this awesome article we found on Snusline. They really lay it all out there.
Yeah, it's true. Custom forms and regulations, they can be a bit of a headache, right? But the good news is, disputing these snus charges, it's actually surprisingly straightforward.
Okay, so let's say our listener gets that dreaded customs bowl. What's the first move? Do we, go full Sherlock Holmes and start gathering evidence?
You know, Sherlock's got the right idea, but hold your magnifying glass for just a second. The very first thing you want to do, and this might sound counterintuitive, is pay the fees.
Wait, really? Pay up front. That feels like giving in.
I know, it feels wrong, but trust me, this is a strategic move. Because by paying right away, you actually speed up the whole process. Your order won't get held up, which means you get your snus faster.
Okay, so less waiting around. That's always a win. And then while we're enjoying our snus, we can plot our next move.
Exactly. And that next move, gather your evidence. We're talking proof of purchase, so your invoice or receipt. And you also want those courier details, that breakdown of all the fees,
Yeah.
customs, VAT, the whole shebang.
Receipts. This is why I never throw them away. Okay, so we've got our receipts, we've got our tracking info. Anything else we should be on the lookout for?
This is where it gets interesting and where that Snusline article is really helpful. They highlight the importance of proof of origin, especially if your snus came from the EU.
Proof of origin, so where it was made. What does that have to do with anything?
Well, it all comes down to Brexit and that whole EU-UK trade agreement. There are these specific rules about goods traded between them. Depending on where your snus is from, those customs duties might not have even applied in the first place.
Aha, so it's like a secret loophole. Love it. Okay, so we've paid the fees, grumblingly. We've got our receipts, our tracking, and our proof of origin trump card. Now what?
Now it's time to unleash the power of HMRC Form BOR 286.
HMRC form. Say that 5 times fast. Okay, in all seriousness, what is that?
Basically, it's the official form for requesting a refund or a remission of import duties. Don't worry, it sounds more complicated than it is. The Snusline article actually has a link where you can download it directly.
Oh, thank goodness, downloadable forms. The magic of the internet. Okay, so what do we do with this form? What kind of magical incantations do we have to write on it?
It's pretty straightforward. You just fill in your info, all the details about your order, and then the reason why you're disputing the charges. Were they calculated wrong? Was the product misclassified? Be clear, be specific. Channel your inner snus lawyer.
Okay, love it. Be specific. Got it. Now, the article also mentioned something called TPD 1870. It sounds kind of like a robot from Star Wars. What is that all about?
Less exciting than a Star Wars robot, I'm afraid. But it is important. TPD 18070. That refers to a specific section in the UK's Tobacco Products Duty Manual.
Okay, and what does this super official manual have to say? Is it going to help us with our customs quests?
It might. See, here's where it gets interesting. That section, it clarifies that while selling snus is generally prohibited in the UK, importing it for personal use is totally legal.
Wait, hold on. You can't sell it, but you can import it. That seems a little backwards.
It does, doesn't it?
Okay.
But those are the rules. And this is why that TPD 180070 reference is so important.
It's like saying, hey, HMRC, I'm not some shady snus dealer. Okay. I just like to enjoy a little something different now and then.
Exactly. It proved your import was for you, not for some big business scheme, which lines up perfectly with their regulations.
We are back and ready to tackle more customs conundrums. That this TPD 18070 thing, it really is fascinating, right? Who knew such specific rules even existed? But it makes me wonder, what if you're ordering snus from outside the UK? Or say you're on a trip, maybe somewhere in Scandinavia, and you want to bring some back. Is that a whole other can of worms?
You know, you're hitting on a really important point. Because the world of snus, it's kind of like the flavors themselves, super diverse. And what's perfectly fine in the UK, well, it might not fly in, say, France or somewhere else.
Oh, I can only imagine. So how do we avoid those awkward, maybe slightly embarrassing encounters with customs in other countries?
Honestly, it all comes down to being prepared. Before you even pack your bags, definitely before you click Buy Now on that website, check the regulations for your destination country.
Okay, that seems like a good rule in general for, life.
Right. And I'm not just talking about a quick Google search here. Go straight to the source. Find those official government websites for customs and import information. because the rules, they change all the time, so you've got to have the most up-to-date info.
Okay, so no relying on like hearsay or your friend's uncle who totally knows a guy. Official sources only. Got it. But what about when you're actually at customs? Any tips for navigating that moment of truth?
You know, it sounds simple, but honestly, being upfront and honest is really the best policy. Trying to sneak something through might seem tempting, but trust me, customs officials, they've seen it all. And the consequences, yeah, not worth the risk.
Plus, we're all about being strategic here, right? Better to be prepared and informed than, well, sorry, and snussless. So let's say, hypothetically, of course, that our listener is heading to, I don't know, Sweden, the land of snus. They want to bring some back naturally, but how much is too much?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And unfortunately, there's no magic number. It's different for every country. They each have their own limits on tobacco and nicotine products, usually based on weight.
So it's not like you can just say, oh, I can bring back 5 cans. There's a whole, like, snus weight limit.
Yeah, exactly. You might be limited to a certain number of grams or maybe kilograms of tobacco. And here's the thing, some countries, they even factor in the value of the products.
So, like, those fancy limited edition snus cans, those could push you over the limit even if you're under the weight restriction. That's brutal. Okay, so research is key. But what about when we're talking about ordering online? That feels like a whole other beast. All right, so we've gone global with customs rules, but, like, let's be real. Most of us are probably ordering snus online these days, right? So how does that work? Does it get any easier?
You know, it seems like it should be simple, right? Click, order, done. But you'd be surprised how many people get caught out by those customs fees, even when they're shopping online.
Wait, really? But I just assumed, like, the online retailers, they would have that whole customs thing figured out.
You would think so, wouldn't you? And some of them, they really do try. But the problem is, these regulations, they can change so quickly, it's almost impossible to keep up with everything for every country.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So what's the secret? How do you avoid getting hit with those surprise fees when you're buying snus online?
Well, it all boils down to transparency. Look for those online retailers that are really upfront about their shipping policies, especially for international orders. They should tell you, straight up, if there are any potential customs duties or taxes that you might have to pay.
And if that info is, like, buried somewhere in the fine print, that's a red flag.
Oh yeah, definitely a red flag. A good seller, they'll make that information easy to find. They might even have like a whole FAQ section about international orders and customs. And don't be afraid to reach out to their customer support if you can't find what you need.
Right, got to be proactive. Okay, that makes sense. Now, I've seen some websites, they offer different shipping options. Some even say things like customs friendly or duty paid. What's that all about?
Those can be really good options, actually. It basically means the company has figured out a way to simplify things. Maybe they prepay the duties, or they use a specific shipping method that's less likely to get flagged.
So potentially way less hassle for us.
Exactly. But, and this is important, always read the fine print. Make sure you understand what you're getting. Are there any extra fees? Does it apply to your country? Be an informed shopper.
Always good advice. So we've covered a lot of ground, from those UK-specific tips to global customs rules, ordering online, all of it. Any final words of wisdom for our snus-loving listeners out there?
You know, it might seem overwhelming, all these regulations and whatnot, but honestly, a little knowledge goes a long way. Do your research, use common sense, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Love it. Knowledge is power. And hey, a big thanks to that Snuzzline article for inspiring this whole deep dive. We'll be sure to share the link in the show notes so you can check it out for yourself. Well, that's it for today, everyone. As always, thanks for listening. Stay curious. And until next time, happy snuzzing.